Hello all, my name is Sam or Samuel, whichever you prefer, and welcome to my attempt at a Shining Pearl Hardcore Nuzlocke challenge. Seeing as this is only my second foray into Sinnoh ever, and the first one didn't quite make it past the halfway mark, I decided to do a standard Hardcore Nuzlocke challenge this time around. No quirks or restrictions outside of the usual. It's hard for me to give a meaningful opinion on how successful or disappointing this remake may or may not be because, again, I don't hold these games with the same nostalgic value that many fans do. However, from my point of view, it's the most unremarkable entry in the mainline series. It's safe and plays by the rules. That's not necessarily a bad thing, however, as I wait for the Arceus release with bated breath. It looks new. So it'll be interesting to see how a more action RPG playstyle translates to the Pokemon formula. This isn't a Legends of Arceus video though, it's a Shining Pearl video. I've decided to do a partial blind run, only allowing myself to research the gym leaders and Elite Four, so all routes and trainers will be a mystery. And one more noteworthy bit, despite my objections stated in my Emerald video, I'm allowing myself to calculate. I know I said it was boring and not fun, and only for nerds who hate puppies, but after my poison run, I've found that replaying a game 7 times with no real deviation on strategy is more boring. I can admit when I'm wrong, and sometimes calcs can 100% be the way to go. I'll be following the standard Hardcore Nuzlocke rules, which I'll post in the description, but they're basically as follows. I can only capture the first legal encounter per route/area, and I'll allow myself only one encounter from the underground at my time of choosing. Fainted Pokemon must be permaboxed or released. Game mode must be on set. No items in battle. Held items are fine, and no leveling past the next gym leader's highest level member. Alright. With all of that out of the way, let's see how it went. I choose English as my language. Rowan pops in and oak spiels all over my face and surrounding area. I choose dark hair white boy, and I name myself Sam. For now. Just like the previous Sinnoh adventure, I name my rival More because Sam backwards is Moss, which is more in Spanish. So as I finish my BBC special, I decide to see if I can do the Leon spin. 0 out of 10. Turn the game off. Mom tells me that Moore has an emergency, so I rush over to his house to free him from the Chinese finger trap or whatever he deems as an emergency. We then have a stern discussion on the term emergency. Unfortunately, I don't see an organic way at this time to check my trainer ID before choosing my starter, so I choose Piplup. I've always had a disposition for water types. Tweety goes down and I walk back to my house. Mother ties up my shoes so I can start running. I swear I'll learn how to tie those one of these days. Rowan allows me to keep the stolen Piplup, who I name Ramza. Because of BDSP's lack of noses, I've chosen my favorite game devoid of noses as well, Final Fantasy Tactics, but I'm explicitly using the original PS1 spelling. Don't at me. Dawn starts flirting with me. Sorry Dawn, but I'm afraid I must banish you to the friend zone. I catch a Starly, who I name Maluda. Next is a Shinx that I name Mustadio, despite the gender. Oh well. Alright, Clown, Watch, Bidoof named Algus, Rival Battle, and Dab. I pick up a Zubat who I name Sid. And then, Nintendo listened to the video I released 3 days after BDSP released, and they removed the need for HM Necessity. Kinda. This is a great step in the right direction though. Geodude joins the party, and I name her Celia, thinking her use will be minimal, so she gets a throwaway character name. After a while grinding the team up for Rourke, I run into Abra, and because the universe allowed me a callback to the Psychic run, I captured her with a single Premier Ball throw. Abra gets the name Alma, and wanting just one more backup for Rourke, I pick up a Machop who I named Dysadarg. With Ramza now up to the level cap, I decide to just pop in and sweep Rourke because it'll be easy. Geodude goes down to a single water gun. Onyx does get a rock throw off, shaving off a quarter of my health, lives on a sliver, heals, then goes down the following turn. I know the Cranidos can hit pretty decently, so I use Charm twice and try and go for a third before a headbutt crit cuts through my prep, and Ramza goes down. Just like that. Celia comes out, and a couple of rock smashes ends the battle. Well, there goes my starter. Rourke gives me some stickers. Awesome! Oh, and a badge or whatever. But stickers. After dropping off the bastard of House Bale, I take my aggression out on just as many rocks as I can. While working my way toward the Perugly battle, I catch a Shellos and name him Weegraph. Now, I don't know if this battle was nerfed, or if Mars is only a subpar challenge with less team restrictions, but Celia really breezed her way through both Zubat and Perugly with ease. I take some time to plaster actual garbage all over Celia's ball, as a reward for a job well done. And not realizing this was even a thing, these youth-deficient folks give me a free Jirachi. and I name it after my actual response. Alma reaches her final form. After making my way to Eterna City, this old man throws me in a hole. Just give me the lotion already. The Grand Underground is deceptive. It's super monotonous, but there's enough small pulls to keep you drawn in longer than your intended mull time. From the Diglett/Doug Trio sparkles, which I'm still not sure what accomplish exactly, to these intriguing boxes that make you feel like you lucked out and found a hyper rare item. Even after you wise up to their game, you spend another hour down there to keep unraveling the mysteries. And even better, I haven't come across an arbitrary sphere limit, so each mining session can roll from one to the next fairly unimpeded. My biggest gripe for the populated rooms though, the hitboxes and running in this game are absolutely atrocious. It makes going anywhere an absolute slog, and while trying to juke your way past some rando, you get stuck on air. Anyway, I finally escape the time suck and start taking out the trainers in the gym. Before taking on Gardenia though, I run out east of Eterna and find this little unit of a Metatite. I name him Delita. I've never really used a Metacham before and really underestimated how amazing Pure Power can be when you build a team member around it. Pure Power doubles a user's attack, making Metacham not quite as useful as a special attacker, but an absolute powerhouse physically. I don't realize this at all until very, very late game, of course. I also pick up this Qingling who I name Rad, using another throwaway name because I don't foresee having a big use for him. So I start my battle against Gardenia and lead with Maluda and pop 3 workups. But after the Cherubi hits a super strong Dazzling Gleam, I figure setup time is over and hit with a Wing Attack. And with Wing Attack, one-shot it, Turtwig, and Roserade. But not before she brings me down to 9 HP with a Grass Knot. I should have learned my lesson that Roserade can be a real hunk. With that though, 2 badges down, and I'm a 4th way through the gym challenge. I make my way to the Galactic base, and Celia smackdowns her weight around. Boom, 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 boom. You gotta love a 100% accurate rock move. Before taking on Jupiter though, I decide to train up a bit, not to be caught off guard by that Skuntank. And while grinding, Sid evolves into a Golbat. Neat. And Sid loves me so much that he evolves at the very next level to Crobat, who, fun fact, is one of my favorite Pokemon, top 5 easy. I decided to take Jupiter on finally and lead with Celia, so I smack down the Zubat not only to the ground, but 6 feet under as well. Skuntank comes out, but after being brought to 6 HP, I switch her out to Maluda, who finishes the bout off with a Quick Attack. The Bike Dude gives me a bike, and I choose Blue, because it was at the top of the options. Dawn gives me the very real, not fabricated or pre-decided challenge of Guess the Hand. I do some quick calcs, and I choose the right hand. I meet up with Mom at the Heart Home contest hall. And apparently she's some big shot. I think maybe it's time to take Fantina on and get told to get good scrub. And before departing Heart Home City, I stop by the local Real World Orthodox Church. Just like real church, this place weirds me out, but I silently respect those attending and slip out back before I can accidentally blaspheme all over. After Sid stomps the Gyarados with a couple of cross poisons, Dysodarg evolves to a Machoke. Cool, now he's 2/3 useful. I make my way to the Veilstone department store and I'm shocked on the 3rd floor with their TM selections. This is almost as busted as free Move Tutor right out of the gate. I give the dumbed down character customization a quick skim, and I pick the Pikachu hoodie just to ditch that mushroom hat. Dawn ambushes me in front of the gym, says nothing basically, and leaves. Strange girl. Almost too easily, Sid sweeps all of Maylene's trainers, almost like he has a 4 times resistance, and ignoring that little voice in my head to lead with Sid against Maylene, I decide to give Maluda the W on this one. And after a single workup, I'm reminded that most of the starter birds have a split normal typing. Like, come on. Airlace one-shots both Metatite and Machoke, and feeling absolutely cheeky and overconfident with that, go to do the same with Lucario, who kills Maluda with a single Drain Punch. Sid comes out, Aerial aces Lucario down to red before Maylene Hyper Potions, and too scared to lose him, I switch over to Dysodarg, who lands a critical hit revenge that I clicked thinking Maylene would throw another attack. I get my 3rd badge and drop Maluda off into the box. Never fun to lose an Intimidate user, but I persevere. This Psychic almost kills Celia with her Kadabra. Even with Sturdy, the confusion could have been the end. Luckily, Celia breaks through and brings Kadabra down to the red before Alma finishes it off. I snatch up a Draft Rig that I name Lead. After dispatching Crasher's gym trainers, I run over to the marsh, never having used it before, just ran into the grass and snatched up a Wooper, who I named Islude. When Crasher Wake has the next battle, Mustadio evolves to a Luxray, straight from Shinx. Actually, she evolved to Luxio earlier, I just missed it while writing the script. I lead with Lead against Crasher Wake, hoping a Shockwave would do the trick, but he's brought down to about a third before bringing Lead down to 17 with a Crunch. Big oof, not poggers at all. A second Shockwave takes it out though, and Wake brings out Quagsire. which was Leeds' main reason for even being in this gym in the first place. Someone to throw a grass knot. Quagsire goes down to a single grass knot, and out last comes his Floatzel. I ponder for a second if I should swap, but I forget that the ghost gym exists and I say, I guess I don't need a giraffe rig that badly, and I'll have to sack for a clean switch to Mustadio, who flinches turn 1, is frozen turn 2, and then brined to death turn 3. If I'm being honest, after the freeze, I was pretty annoyed, and said, I guess she dies then. I'm not totally immune to emotional plays, even when it comes to Nuzlocking. Dicedark comes out, gets hit with a weak bite, flinches, goes to about half with another brine, and finishes the battle with a second turn boosted revenge. 4 badges down, and now it's time for some galactic plot garbage. This bold cut of a gentleman Usain's away, and I make haste in pursuit. After all of that, he throws a single Glameow up against Dicedark, like, okay. Mr. Grunt runs again, but I guess now that I've rendered him Pokéless, he's not worth further chase. Cynthia gives me some potion to heal the Psyduck headaches. That's cool, you're the champion. I'm sure you've got better things to do. Guess I'll see you at the league and... Seriously? You are already coming over here? So, I never found Defog, and didn't know where to find it. And part of a partial blind run is, you know, blind. So I actually stumble my way through this entire route in the fog. Then I give the good old charm to Cynthia's grandma. I fetch the corpse of Ramza from the box and drag him around Amity Square. While his body tumbled behind me, I gathered the random items from around the park. I do a bit of dashing around Heart Home to hatch my Happiny Egg. I've never used this line before, not even in my regular playthrough of games, so I'm excited to see what the big whoop is. Happiny is named Ovelia. I snag up a Bronzor, hoping to actually get to use a Bronzong this playthrough after repeatedly killing them in my Psychic run. Bronzor is named Worker 8 since they're genderless. I keep Ovelia walking with me, but she is very slow. So my entire playthrough is plagued with the sound of... I catch a Psyduck who I name Ajora, the False Prophet, since Psyduck was the reason for the non-validity of my Psychic run. And then for some reason, I leave Celia in against a Gyarados in the rain, thinking maybe a Smackdown can do the trick, but Gyarados outspeeds, and then waterfalls her. After taking on the double battles in the cafe, Weegraf evolves to Gastrodon, who I now know is an absolute savage Nuzlocke mon. And very soon after, Ovelia evolves to Blissey, another member who is simply busted for Nuzlocke runs, and honestly is probably going to meet my lifetime ban list right next to Gyarados. With the friendship requirements meant for Blissey, I bring Rat along to walk with me. Not sure if a Chimecho would even have a spot on my team, but I want it. I snatch up a Ponyta who I name Rafa, thinking she could be pretty useful against the Steel Gym. The owner of the mansion gushes about how proud he is of his garden Pokemon, and hopes that everyone for generations to come can enjoy their splendor. So I straight up steal Roselia and name him Meliadel. I math my way through Fantina's gym. At one point I was like, what happens if I get an answer wrong? And I try to choose the wrong door. But I actually did the problem wrong in my head and chose the right door. On accident, failing upwards like usual. I open with Ovelia against Cynthia's Drifblim and immediately set some stealth rocks as she does a pointless strength sap. Next turn, a light screen goes up and Drifblim burns Ovelia. But I'm not too concerned. Ovelia isn't on the field to stay. She does land a nasty fly as Ovelia throws a 50% damaging Thunderbolt. I pop off a Life Dew and then switch over to Weegraf to take the fly. Weegraf dodges a Will-O-Wisp and takes Drifblim down to a sliver with an Ancient Power, and Fantina weighs a Hyper Potion as Weegraf does another nasty chunk of damage. Drifblim strength saps and gets most of the Ancient Power damage recovered, and next turn a decent Hex knocks Weegraf under half before Citrus recovery. But a final Ancient Power recreates Hindenburg, and the blimp goes down. Gengar comes out next, and I spend a turn using Recover after being hit with a decent Dazzling Gleam. Next turn I go for the Ancient Power, but get confused, and hurt myself in the process. Next turn, Surf takes Gengar down to about a quarter, but Weegraf gets hit to about half, so I take the Hyper Potion turn to recover. Confuse Ray hits the next turn, and Weegraf again fails the check, and the next turn, and the turn after that. And with Weegraf down to 25 HP, I send Sid out to see if he can bite Gengar down finally. A Colbert Berry helps the first turn, but a second bite does take the Gengar out. Miss Magius comes out, and I actually didn't check her moveset, so I was running off the assumption that she had Psychic, and swaps it over to Alma. She sets up a Phantom Force, and I switch over to Dicedark to eat it. Then back to Alma, then back to Sid, then back to Dicedark, then back to Sid. I'm gonna be honest here, watching the footage playback is really obnoxious. All I'm doing here is chipping my own team down. Sid lands a bite after breaking through a confusion, and I switch over to Ovelia, use Life Dew, set up another light screen, and a Thunderbolt ends the battle. This is classic overthinking Sam. With badge 5, I can now surf, and oh my god, look at this water. While in the process of finding my next encounter, Delita evolves to a Medicham. That's pretty rad. No, not you. And the first battle of consequence with Moore happens to be in Canalave. I brought Rafa into the team to train up for the gym, just to have some fire coverage, and Heracross takes her out with a brick break. So, cool. Delita comes out to avenge her, but Psychic doesn't finish it, because I, again at this point, didn't realize what pure power was all about. And he goes down to 3 HP and almost pays for my own ignorance. After burying Rafa, I head off to Iron Islands. Never having made it this far before, I didn't know what kind of encounters I would get. So I went in with repels, and as soon as I see Anime Hatman, I just know I'm getting a Lucario. So I use his egg as my Iron Islands encounter. Though, Azora does go down during this double battle with these Ace trainers, and then his corpse evolves to a Golduck after the battle. Once I have the egg in hand, I fly off to Floroma just to bike for a while, and with Riolu hatched, he gets named Gafgarian. I spent a bunch of time with Rad, just desperately trying to get that evolution, but give up after a while, resigning my fate to never having a Chingling that loves me. The Ghastly that I had picked up earlier evolves to a Haunter, despite never having been in a battle. With all my main dudes about at the level cap, I accidentally run into this worker, so I had to switch all my team around to spread the EXP out to prevent any overleveling. How obnoxious. So, Byron leaves with Bronzong, and Delita takes it out with 2 Drain Punches. When Steelix comes out, I know that Onyx and Steelix have much less Spadef than Def, so I decide a Psychic was the way to go. Seriously, for the Elite Four, I fully understand pure power. Steelix hits a crazy hard Earthquake and procs my Citrus Berry basically right away. Delita heals enough with a Drain Punch the next turn to survive another non-crit Earthquake. After Sandstorm Chip, Delita is suffering at 13 HP, but a second Drain Punch finishes off the Steelix as the Sandstorm ends. Bastiodon comes out, and I bring Weegraf onto the field to take it into the red before his berry. Flash Cannon does its best, but Weegraf finishes the battle with another Earth Power. While training up for the next leg of the journey, I start messing around in the Pokédex and find out this weird and cool feature. Krickettoon's cry becomes even more absurd when it's slowed down. I get to a good position and meet the crew at the library, where a devastating earthquake takes place. Moore and I are very concerned, but the kid at the next table is like, meh, 2 out of 10. While taking on the Grunts of Valor, Gafgarian evolves a Lucario. If only all of my friendship evolutions were this easy. I thoroughly explore Lake Valor, clicking basically every square, and only after a couple of minutes pass do I realize I'm whispering under my breath, swag, swag, swag. But alas, no swag. Saturn proves no trouble at all, and Worker 8 evolves to Bronzong in the process. Mars puts up about as much issue as Saturn, and this lets me proceed towards Snowpoint. I blindly bump my way through Coronet since, again, I haven't bothered finding Defog yet. I pick up a Snover who I named Vormav, starting to run out of FFT characters that I know offhand, so I've been dipping into an old GameFAQs walkthrough from 2002, just to make sure it's the PS1 version with the original names. Black Belt Luke flexes, saying something like, "Cold ain't shit, I don't need a jacket." My next capture is a Sneasel, who I tried to name Tita, but that's apparently a swear? So I have to break my convictions and go for an updated name. Tetra. I spend like a long time doing this dumbass puzzle. So I finally make it through the puzzle, and up to the leader, and I'm wondering to myself, can this even be a real challenge? I've had Delita learn Fire Punch from the move tutor, and I lead against her Snover. I skip any setup and go right for the offense. Snover and Sneasel's HP sync with a single Fire Punch each, but Candace's own Medicham is a little bulkier and loses less than half to a Psychic. I swap over to Ovelia, who gets hit hard with another Ice Punch. It's too dangerous to keep her in another turn, so I switch to Dicedart, who, with a Citrus Berry heal, can take 2 Ice Punches. Friendship perks rear their head though, and Dicedart lives on 1 HP, so I wouldn't feel sad. I mean, I'm not sad right now, just disappointed. And a payback takes the Medicham out. 'Twas for naught though, as Dicedart goes down to hail anyways at the end of the turn. Delita comes back out against a Abomasnow, and a charcoal boosted Fire Punch one-shots it. Dicedart sadly dropped off from the dead box. I proceed off to Acuity, where Jupiter is all, talk shit, get hit, noob. Okay, bye. I trudge through the next leg of the story garbage. Honestly, I probably should be paying attention since I haven't actually played Gen 4 before, but I'm fairly sure it hits all the regular Pokemon story beats. Cyrus puts up a bigger fight than I expected. Murkrow gives a surprising amount of difficulty and takes Gafgarian down to half, so I swap over to Ovelia, who's immune to a Nightshade. She does get taunted the next turn, which blocks my Light Screen attempt. An Assurance shaves off a good amount, while Ovelia's Thunderbolt nearly wipes it out, but it does land a Paralysis. I take the advantage to swap over to Weagraff to shake off the taunt, and Cyrus uses a Super Potion. I deliberate between Stealth Rocks, Light Screen, and Soft Boil, knowing that I should outspeed with Paralysis, but then I get taunted right after choosing Soft Boil and Healing. Annoyed, I just end it with another Thunderbolt. Golbat comes out, and another Thunderbolt does a little over half while Golbat screeches at her. A Poison Fang does just a little bit of damage, and a second Thunderbolt takes it out, just in time for Taunt to wear off. With Sneasel out, not being super familiar with the Sneasel family and that they're typically more physically attuned, I throw up a Light Screen and get hit with a pretty weak Metal Claw. Heal the next turn after Ovelia avoids a Metal Claw thanks to Friendship or whatever. And right after finishing rubbing my brow, Ovelia lands a Friendship crit. Even with a crit, it does less than I had hoped, so I swap over to Delita, who can swiftly end the battle with a Drain Punch. Apparently Saturn didn't get enough of a beatdown before, so I take him off the planet registry, Pluto style. The game forces me to release the captives, then it cuts the BS and says, "You have to leave." Eager to just progress, I work my way through Coronet, Mars and Jupiter get Drain Punched into oblivion, and Cyrus puts on his best "grr, I'm so mad" face. But he's just too cute for me to be afraid. He does put up another difficult fight though. Ovelia sets up Stealth Rocks before a crit Night Slash sends her down under half. Weagraff pivots in to take a Night Slash and it does less than half, so I go for an Ancient Power which does less than half. I send in Sid on another crit Night Slash and try to roost twice and just hope eventually I can dodge a crit. But the next Night Slash high roll crits and Sid goes down. My only option is Delita with a neutral effective Drain Punch. He outspeeds and the Honchkrow goes down, and to rub salt in the fresh wound, Cyrus sends out a Crobat. The Crobat wastes its turn setting up a Tailwind, and Delita hits a strong Psychic. Knowing that Cyrus will take a turn to heal, I swap over to Worker 8 to set up an Iron Defense on Crobat's U-turn. When Gyarados comes out, I set up another Iron Defense as it crunches me. Tailwind peters out and Extra Sensory is underwhelming. Worker 8 goes down to 15 HP, and I have to switch over to Delita, who's at least neutral to the crunch. And a Waterfall hits Delita down to half. Even not very effective, I opt for Drain Punch just to heal up a tiny bit. Luckily, Recover heals more than Waterfall can damage, so I can get back a little healthier as long as I can dodge these crits. I eventually take down the Gyarados with the Psychic, and this sends Crobat back out. Praying for either a Tailwind or a Flying move, I pivot over to Alma, and a Tailwind is set. Close my eyes and select Psychic, just praying that Alma can survive just one move. And a U-turn lands, Alma lives on just 15 HP, Weavile comes out and is immune to the incoming Psychic. Super cool, Cyrus. The team is looking terrible, but I have to do something, so I send out Ovelia, who takes next to no damage from a Fling. This might be my chance. I use Soft Boil to get her healthy again and switch over to Worker 8 after Weavile sets up a Dig. Dig misses, I switch back to Ovelia, an Aerial Ace lands and I Soft Boil again to get to full. Worker 8 avoids another Dig, and then I start getting tired of this loop we're stuck in, so I heal one more time with Ovelia, set up a Light Screen, and instead of dodging it again, I go for a very weak Thunderbolt. It can't be helped though, and I just have to cheese the battle. Weavile eventually goes down, and I'm in a much better position against the Crobat. Cross Poison does poison after Thunderbolt barely fails the kill, but again, the Friendship mechanic healed up poison, letting me safely end the battle the next turn. Well, as far as I know, that should be the last Cyrus battle, but it wasn't without heartache. I just hucked the Master Ball at Palkia, named them my reaction to having a second legendary, and Rowan says something serious, but it's again undercut with just how cute he is. I pick up a Glamio and name her Rafa, forgetting about Moore's pony victim, but hey, at least, whatever. While training him for Volkner, I put right up against his Machoke and a knockoff killed him, and then his corpse tries evolving to a Chimecho. I'm working my way through Volkner's gym when this Kadabra's Energy Ball kills his loot. I start Volkner's battle with Weagraff. Raichu tries to surf, but Weagraff's Storm Drain eats it up like vitamins, and Earth Power wipes the Raichu out. Ambipom comes out, fakes out, and then if it ain't broke, don't fix it happens, and I Earth Power again to one shot. Same with the Octillery and the Luxray. And Volkner has been swept. Sweeped. Gen 2 says Waterfall. I pick up a little baby Mantike and name him Biblos, and then finally pick my underground encounter. A Houndoom who I name Elmdor. I take the time to mug this rich old couple a couple dozen times to make sure I can buy vitamins for Houndoom. And then I spend the next several hours training the entire core team up to 60. And then right before strolling confidently into Aaron's room, I realize there's still a rival fight. This is less than ideal, so I have to train up a B team, literally just for one battle. They will be my Suicide Squad. The battle is fairly uneventful. Byblos and Rafa do pay the price for my over-preparation. Their sacrifices will never be forgotten. Good old Bible and Rama. With the, game out of the way. Here's my final team. Delita, the bashful Metacham with Pure Power. Worker 8, the modest Bronzong with Levitate. Weegraf, the naive Gastrodon with Storm Drain. Elmdor, the bashful Houndoom with Early Bird. Gafgarian, the quiet Lucario with Steadfast. And Ovelia, the gentle Blissey with Natural Cure. I head into Aaron finally, and for the first time in the game, battle animations are turned on. Theatrical mode is activated. Aaron leads with Dustox, and I lead with Delita holding a Pecha Berry, hoping that Dustox goes for a Toxic so I can get a free workup off. Dustox does use Bug Buzz, so I try and do 2 workups, and Dustox uses Toxic the second turn. At this point, a Fire Punch one-shots Dustox, Beautifly, Vespiquen, Heracross, and since Drapion is neutral to fire, I go for a Drain Punch. But Delita gets crit by Night Slash and survives with the power of friendship. And since I'm outsped by Drapion, I switch out to Gafgarian and try and finish the fight with an Aura Sphere. But Aaron heals, so I have to switch to Weegraf, who then finishes the fight with an Earth Power. Not an incredible start to the boss rush, but I still feel pretty confident. Against Bertha, I lead with Worker 8. Levitate should protect me against most of her moves. A Grass Knot takes out the Quagsire, then when Golem comes out, I break it sturdy with a Psychic and a Grass Knot finishes it off. Sudowoodo goes down to 2 Grass Knots, and when Wishcash comes out, I switch over to Weegraf. Wishcash goes down to a couple of Earth Powers after Bertha heal stalls for a bit. Finally, Hippowdon comes out, who dies to a single Surf. Flint is up next, and I lead with Weegraf, holding a Chesto Berry to try and dodge Rapidash's Hypnosis. The Chesto wasn't needed though, as Weegraf friendship dodges and kills with an Earth Power. Lopunny swaps in, so I bring Weegraf back, and then I let Delita Drain Punch the bunny back to Fur Affinity. When Steelix comes in, I take the turn to set up a Reflect as an Iron Tail does half damage, even through the boosted defense. A Drain Punch recovers most of the health for the Iron Tail. I switch over to Elmdor to anticipate Driftblim coming in. Iron Tail takes him down to about half, but a Flamethrower kills the Steelix, sending in Driftblim. The Driftblim starts with a Minimize, so Elmdor of course misses his first Dark Pulse, but a Strength Sap later, the Dark Pulse connects and Driftblim goes down to a Sliver. I just have to bust through the evasion one more time. Unfortunately, Driftblim baton passes the evasion over to Infernape, who resists the Dark Pulse, and as a result, Infernape only loses about a quarter of their health. This forces me to switch to Weegraf again, who nearly goes down to a close combat. Oh, that's savage. Luckily, a Surf connects through the evasion and Infernape goes down. I switch back to Elmdor, who can end the battle with a Dark Pulse. 3 down, only 2 left, and I've kept my whole team alive so far. Not bad, Sam. It's almost like you've got barely any restrictions. And now, for the most boring battle of the entire game. Against Lucian, I open with Chansey, set up Stealth Rocks turn 1, as Mr. Mime sets up a Light Clay boosted light screen. I set up my own Light Clay boosted light screen in response, and Mr. Mime skips Reflect for some reason and hits a Psychic. I then start firing off a million Thunderbolts until my light screen ends. With Mr. Mime in the orange and another boosted light screen setup, I switch over to Elmdor, who sets up 3 Nasty Plots and finishes it with a Sledge Bomb. Not super smart, because in the process Dazzling Gleam had brought him down pretty low, and I have to lose those buffs anyways, and I have to send Delita out against Lucian's own Metacham. Delita loves me and dodges a high kick, causing Metacham to crash and hurt itself. I set up a Reflect, work up, and get my lost health back with a Big Root boosted Drain Punch. This kills Metacham in the process. Alakazam enters, and I switch over to Ovelia, whose special defense is just nutty, and maybe I can be boring again and just stall this out. Alakazam starts nasty plotting, and I set up a light screen. Once again, I start switching between Thunderbolts and Soft Boils to stay healthy. Alakazam is paralyzed along the way. Ovelia gets hit with the Future Sight, so I take that time to switch over to Weegraf and hopefully hit Alakazam while he's setting up another Future Sight. But this was a fool's move, as Alakazam simply throws a Psychic the next turn and is 6+ boosted at this time, and Weegraf goes down even through the light screen. I send in Elmdor, who thankfully can outspeed due to paralysis, and kills the Alakazam with a Dark Pulse. Girafarig comes in next, and I rinse, lather, and repeat. When Bronzong comes in, I mirror and send in Worker 8. I set up a Reflect and 3 Iron Defenses to tank through the paybacks being thrown. Once all prepped, I start throwing Grass Knots and Psychics. Lucian does heal somewhere in there, but I keep going until Worker 8 is down to 26 HP, cutting it a little close, but Ovelia comes in and drops a Thunderbolt, brings Bronzong down to red, Lucian heals, 2 more Thunderbolts send Bronzong down to orange. Bronzong is throwing some pretty decent earthquakes, and I soft boil until I run out of PP. Then I thunderbolt until Bronzong finally goes down. And then because I just forget, I skip over all of my elixirs and my ethers, and I don't refresh any of my moves and head straight to Cynthia. I feel less confident with the absence of Weegraf, who's been amazing the entire run. Cynthia starts with a little monologue about how she appreciates me running her errands, and that after the battle she has a shopping list she needs me to attend to. I lead with Elmdor against Cynthia's Spiritomb. Spiritomb can actually do very little against Elmdor, so I set up 3 nasty plots as she just tries to sucker punch. Once Elmdor is buffed up, I go for Flamethrower boosted with Charcoal. That kills Spiritomb in 1 hit. Unfortunately, the sucker punch did finally land and shaved off about 1/3 of my health. Next in is Gastrodon, who suffers a similar fate, and a single Dark Pulse wipes her out. Lucario comes out, and even though she outspeeds, she just does a nasty plot as Flamethrower one-shots him. Sweeping half of Cynthia is more than good enough, but when Melodic comes out, I'm pretty sure it's come to a head. But then, Elmdor lands the flinch, so I've basically just locked Cynthia into healing while I keep throwing Dark Pulses. For a newcomer, Elmdor is carrying his weight. Roserade comes in, but that expert belt doesn't do shit when she doesn't have any super effective moves, and a Flamethrower burns her to a crisp. And with 5 out of 6 swept, Elmdor has reached the end of his road, and Garchomp finally puts the Janitor of Shining Pearl to his final sleep. I bring out Ovelia, who I've loaded with Dazzling Gleam, maybe, just maybe. And Dazzling Gleam does about 1/4, while Garchomp, I guess not seeing a real threat, just does a Swords Dance. Next turn, a single Dragon Claw puts Ovelia in the ground. I decide to stop messing around and bring in Worker 8, who I've calculated stands the best chance against Garchomp more than anyone else. All of Garchomp's moves are physical, so I start with Reflect to mitigate some of her crazy high damage output. And then Friendship rears its ugly head again, and I roll my eyes as Worker 8 dodges Dragon Claw. The next turn, I set up an Iron Defense and lose about 1/4 of my health. I go for Psychic, praying for a special defense drop so I can make the most of my remaining Grass Knots. Of course, no such luck, and Garchomp Swords dances again. I throw another Psychic and get the drop. Thank God. But now Garchomp is in the red, so Cynthia heals the next turn, and all Worker 8 has left are Grass Knots to attack with. Grass Knot hits a critical and downs about 1/3 of Garchomp's health. Not great damage, but I may be able to tank through this a little longer. And then I misplay and try to reflect when my reflect was still active. I swear, I had seen it end, so the next turn I Iron Defense and Friendship dodge a Dragon Claw. And then I do it again and try a reflect. I guess I was panicking at this point and was desperate to keep myself safe. Of course, Reflect does end after my failed Reflect. I click Reflect a 3rd and final time. Worker 8 survives out of sheer love and finally sets it up. Dragon Claw kills the next turn, and Worker 8 melts into a pile of pure love and friendship on the floor. Thanks for all the cheating on my behalf, dude. Delita immediately goes down the next turn, and I'm just left with Gefgarian. This run is over. I go for Dragon Pulse, barely even looking at the screen. I'm already planning out the post-production of the video in my head. When Friendship Mechanics, once again, does it. Gefgarian avoided the move in time via your shout. And then to top it off, lands a critical hit wishing to be praised, and Garchomp goes down. Listen, I love not wiping on the last Pokemon of the champion, but this victory is not mine. Either way, there it is. A hardcore Nuzlocke of Shining Pearl from start to finish. I really want to thank you for joining me on this journey. As uninspired as this game was, I had a fun enough time playing it, and it's by no means what I would consider a bad entry to the franchise. It is fun to be able to have more freedom with my encounters, but I am excited to get back to my challenge runs. I can't wait to keep providing this type of content for all of you. If there's anything else you want to see, just leave it down below in the comments. I'll do whatever I can. And hopefully, if you enjoyed this video, I'll see you in the next one.